It's one of those things you have it behind closed doors, but when it spills over, when the coach has to basically say, you know what, Caitlin, enough is enough. This is too disruptive. That's Cheryl Miller talking about the Caitlin Clark Stephanie White video. I I got to be honest, I don't have the same issue with this video that a lot of people seem to have, Caroline. I remember earlier this season when JJ Redick got into it with Luka Doncic, and for a day we were like, oh, is it a bad match? And then we all just sort of calm down. Coach, star player arguing, coach, star player arguing. I don't really understand why everybody's freaking out about this.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, we've seen this so many times before. Remember when Travis Kelce was screaming in Andy Reid's face on the sidelines in the Super Bowl? Like, this kind of thing happens. And we heard from both Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White yesterday in their post-practice media availability, and both of them said, look, it's competitors and we want to win. And Caitlin has an idea of winning, and Stephanie White has an idea of winning, and that idea, they just clashed, and that's what happens when you're a competitor and tensions run high, and then you're in incredibly high stakes situations. I mean, the Fever got their butts whooped by the Portland Fire that night. It was a 20-point loss. If your star player isn't pissed off, you've got a problem. I want my star player to be pissed off. I want my head coach to hold my star player accountable. So I don't know where all of this massive outrage is coming from. And then we saw all of these rumors start to circulate in social media that Stephanie White was going to be fired and Jan Jansen, the Iowa women's basketball head coach, is going to be hired in Indiana. What? Like, what are we doing here? We see these interactions between coach and player all the time, and never have we heard any sort of threat to that coach's job security. But now we are here. I understand what Caitlin Clark means to the Fever and what she means to the W. But there is no coach in sports that deserves to be a head coach if they treat their star player any differently than any other player on that roster. Or if they treat them, softly, or if they want to wrap them up into a silk bassinet. I have no problem with Stephanie White getting after Caitlin Clark and holding her accountable. And I have no problem whatsoever with Caitlin Clark being pissed off about a certain game plan if she feels like it's not working.
The problem here isn't Caitlin Clark or Stephanie. The problem here is all the idiots on social media that are chiming in on this so loudly, like it's some great disgrace to the sport that a coach and a player have argued. I mean, we had Lexi Hall on yesterday, right? And we asked direct questions about what happened. That got clipped off by Yahoo. Look at the comments in social media. Immediately, it was like spin control, damage control. They sent her on a PR campaign. We had her booked before any of this even happened. I don't want to bog people down with details. Like, I know people don't like facts in today's world because, frankly, screaming seems to make more sense than actual application of any real logic. But, like, here's just real logic for you. A coach and a star player disagreed in the huddle, and it got heated, which happens all the time, and it's not any indication that anybody's going to get fired. The team has started slower than expected, and that doesn't mean that suddenly the coach is going to get fired. There are high expectations. You got Caitlin Clark. That creates high expectations. But again, I will remind the world coming into this season, Indiana was not the best team in the WNBA. Like, that's the other part of this. This is not an Indiana team that was supposed to go undefeated that is suddenly finding themselves at 4-4 right now, and it looks like the wheels have fallen off, and oh my God, they're not living up to expectations. This is a good Indiana team that's supposed to be in contention to be a very good Indiana team, but it never in my mind were they on the same tier of the Aces even coming into this year. I don't understand why suddenly social media has increased the conversation and the rage and the outrage and the accusations from everybody. Like, look, a player and a coach can disagree, and it doesn't mean that anybody's hating on anybody. We can have a player on, and it doesn't mean that anybody's protecting anybody. Like, it can be as simple as basketball players and a coach trying to figure out everybody and everything in a WNBA that saw a very weird offseason, that saw the collective bargaining approach restrict the ability teams had to even hang out with each other in the offseason. Like, it might take a second. It took a second for Vegas last year, too. And when it exploded, and they won a championship. The problem here isn't Stephanie White. The problem here isn't Caitlin Clark. The problem here is the discourse on social media from a bunch of people that don't really have great intentions, that are using social media to simply create an argument that doesn't exist.
I'm also so tired of people wanting women's basketball to be a tea party and for everyone to get along and it's all sunshine and rainbows. These are professional athletes that want to win basketball games. These are fierce competitors. So allow them to be that. The same way we allow male athletes to be that. I also just want to remind everyone we're 8 games into a 44 game season. Okay? The Fever are 4-4. They have championship expectations. They should have championship expectations because this team has a championship ceiling. Starting the season 4-4 is not an indictment on this entire team or this entire coaching staff. Sure, would you want it to look better at times? Absolutely. But we knew that the Fever's defense was going to be a problem for this team going into the season. And you know what? It's been a problem for this team. Did we all forget collectively as a women's basketball society that the Indiana Fever were 1 game away from the WNBA finals last year without Caitlin Clark, without Ari McDonald, without Sydney Colson, without Sophie Cunningham, with Kelsey Mitchell going down with muscle exhaustion in the WNBA semifinals? Like, did we all just forget that an Indiana Fever team that midway through the season, DeWanna Bonner said, no thanks, I'm out of here. I don't want any part of this team. A team that, frankly, I left for dead in the middle of the season. Did we all just collectively forget that Indiana was 1 game away from contending for a championship and taking down the big bad Las Vegas Aces on the course to doing so? Did we all just forget about that? Are we all not giving Stephanie White credit for her coaching being a big reason why the Fever were in that position? I'm not letting a 500 start to the season, 8 games in, totally overshadow that. So if Stephanie White loses her job this season, it'll be because things go totally and completely off the rails for this team. It will not be because she holds Caitlin Clark accountable and has a sideline spat with her. I do not buy into that.
This was also an Indiana team, to your point, for all of the success they had in the playoffs that went on a miraculous run. They were the 6th seed. They were 1 game ahead of the 8th seed. They almost missed the playoffs, right? So this isn't Indiana. Like, it's a process. It's a long process. And I think that's part of what, like, I don't understand the need to anoint Caitlin from day one has meant that all of a sudden, all of these people, and again, like, I think there's a difference, as I say every time we talk about the W, there's a difference between diehard fans talking about a sport that they love versus people that are just coming in with inflammatory hot takes on Caitlin Clark. And unfortunately, that's just part of what happens through all of this process. But to me, Caitlin's coming off of an injury. She missed a lot of time. She said at the very beginning of the season that she was struggling to get her conditioning under her. Like, let the beginning of the year be the beginning of the year. In every single sport, there are teams that start slow. And frankly, I just earlier in this show talked about the Knicks, who during the regular season were defined by their inconsistency until they figured it out. When they figured it out, what do you know? Now they find themselves in the NBA Finals. Can we not allow Indiana, on a team that again is coming off of a collective bargaining break basically during the offseason, that comes together, they got to figure everything out quickly. Can we not allow them a little bit of grace before we decide that people should get fired? So what? At the end of the day, so what? A coach and a star had an argument in a huddle. So what? The only people that seem to have a problem with it are the people that weren't in the huddle, and maybe every single one of those people needs to just get over themselves.